I also started to learn programming by myself. I didn't study computer science or things similar to that. First of all, my opinion is that it's very difficult to learn programming from a book. Then, if you start from scratch, like a self-taught developer, one very, very important thing from my point of view is what programming language do you choose to learn first? Because there are program languages that maybe seem to be easier, but then the problem is that maybe those languages are not that popular, and if you have to learn more difficult languages, then that would be a very steep and hard learning curve. There are, on the other hand, some programming languages that might be more difficult, and it's very difficult to start with. So you say Python. Yeah, Python, from my point of view, again, it's a very subjective one, but Python is a programming language that resembles more a scripting language, and I know it's very popular because it's used a lot for data processing, data science, and things like that, machine learning, basically. For that, it's a very useful language. It also seems to be fairly easy. I used it. I'm not an expert in Python, but I did write some Python code for different projects. But from my point of view, the best way to start learning programming is with an object-oriented language. And from my point of view here, there are only two choices. Either you choose C#, what we do here, for instance, in this stream, or Java. And the reason I say that is because from my point of view, those two languages are kind of like somewhere in the middle if we think about how hard it is to learn a programming language. On one hand, they are easier to learn and understand than languages like C++ and C and other low-level languages. But on the other hand, they are, I would say, fully object-oriented. If you learn Java or C#, I guess that is a very, very good foundation afterwards to learn any of the languages. But then, so this would be really the first point. So I would start with an object-oriented language like C# or Java. And in fact, it's exactly what I did 7 years ago when I started to learn programming on my own. But then, on the other hand, I know it's very difficult to basically find the right materials to learn from. And my personal experience is that learning from books is actually not something that you could do easily. That's of course because it's really more difficult to follow a book. That's why what I would suggest is to learn from courses that you can find online. So I have two books and I do code on Visual Studio Code by those. Yeah, of course you can code in Visual Studio, because in Visual Studio you can write several different programming languages. Visual Studio is just the program where you write your code. But I say that so my advice, of course, if you want to listen to it or not, it's up to you. But I would really choose Java or C#. And then I would suggest probably to concentrate more on online videos and trainings. And if you go on Udemy, but there are also other websites, you can get courses for real beginners, for absolute beginners, for a very, very small price or even for free. And for instance, I can give you a name, Bob Tabor. And Bob Tabor is a trainer that he designed a course for total beginners that want to start. His course is with C#, but it's really a very, very good course. Bob Tabor's training or course, or basically you can find it online for free. And it's also the first course that I took when I started to learn programming. And I really can assure you that that his course is really amazing and will help you very much, and I'm sure that you will learn much more from a course with him than from any of the books that you might be able to go and buy. I'm not aware, or I can't really recommend a course for beginners on Java because it's not something that I work on. So I'm really not aware, but if you decide to go for C#, Bob Tabor and his course is called C# for Absolute Beginners. That's his course, and I can assure that if you take that course, you will be then on your way very well established to become a programmer. And after you are fairly confident with an object-oriented programming language like C# or Java, then as said, you can go towards each direction. So if you want to learn Python, you will see Python would be easier to learn after you learn C#. If you want to learn JavaScript, once again, it would be very easy to learn JavaScript after you know already C#. If you go to, I don't know, some more complicated languages like C++, yeah, well, it will be a little bit more difficult to learn them than learning Python or JavaScript, but it's still feasible. But yeah, so once again, just as a short summary, two pieces of advice that I could give you. Me being in the same position as you are right now 6 years back is, first of all, start with an object-oriented language like C# or Java, and the second one is use an online training from well-established trainers. I would concentrate on them, and I'm not saying you should throw away the books, but I would start and I would concentrate more on trainings online than on books, because it's really easier to learn, it's easier to follow, especially if you have two screens. It's really the learning experience, it's well, much smoother, I would say.